Welcome to another episode of Untold Chapters. Today I'm joined with Toni Wolstenholme, the author of Bertie and the Breakfast Treat, a lovely tale about perseverance and helping each other out. Good morning, Toni. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So we're here today talking about your book, Bertie and the Breakfast Treat. Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am Toni Wolstenholme. I'm 32 years old, live in North Wales area. I'm a keen reader and I've always enjoyed writing and currently work in the social care sector. So juggling writing more books and obviously promoting Bertie and the Breakfast Treat.
Could you tell us about the inspiration behind Bertie Bluebottle and his breakfast adventure? How did the character and the story come to life?
Yeah, so the inspiration came about in lockdown, so quite a while ago now, whilst the world stood still, really. And there's a lot of time to think and be creative with time. At the time, living with my mum, a fly had ventured into the house where my daughter and mum were in fits of giggles, naming him Bertie. And then from this point on, and during working from home, homeschooling, and we basically encouraged storytelling in the house. And as a keen writer, I just began piecing the story together of Bertie's adventure. So this became months of story writing, editing, and now what is known as Bertie and the Breakfast Treat.
That's such a lovely backstory with your daughter. It's such like
Thank
a
you.
kind of a random day-to-day event that's inspired such a different story.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the story emphasizes friendship, courage, and creative problem solving. What was it about these themes that were important to you?
I believe that teaching children these skills is an essential part of their development. So you've got friendship that plays a crucial role in children's lives to build social skills and mental well-being. Teaching children to be courageous, I think this empowers them to take on challenges and overcome risks in life. And then, obviously, with the creative problem solving, this also encourages children to adapt to different situations. So, altogether, all of these skills were important for the story to support children to navigate the world around them with confidence. You know, with the inspiration of Bertie and the Breakfast Tree, I hope it gives them some support in building on these skills.
Yeah, and I'm sure having your own daughter really gave you an insight into how these skills are going to help her build her own personality.
Absolutely, yeah. She was already, able to make friends, and children don't have fear when they're younger, do they? So the courageous part of it and creative problem solving, that is instilled in my daughter. But yeah, reading this book, and obviously for many children, it will help support those skills.
hmm I also feel like as some of the main characters are like insects that tend to be scared of, so like a spiders and a wasp, I feel like it's good to give them that different perspective so they can see that these creatures aren't actually scary. It's given them a
Yeah.
nice little story about some happy little bees and spiders getting out of a scary situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on from that, the dynamic between Bertie, Boris Bee, and Harry Spider is very central to the story. How did you develop their characters and how they interact with each other?
So I wanted to create friendships between three unlikely friends in the insect world who wouldn't naturally gel well together. And just to show children the importance of diversity and, the differences between different children and adults, and basically just so that they can learn that we can all be kind and mindful and friends together, really.
Yeah, especially when they go out of their way to fix Bertie's wing. I think that's such a sweet sentiment, especially because it shows that sharing and helping each other doesn't just have to be one way. You can help each other out of situations, then give back, and it's so sweet. I just love the little bit where the spider spins him a little new wing. It's so cute.
Yeah, it's definitely important to teach children to help each other, like you said, not just one sided. It's got to be helping each other, because I think that's what the world needs, really, kindness and supporting each other, really, from all walks of life.
Yeah, I also love when Bertie tries to turn the tap on and it doesn't quite work in his favor. So he's got more than one idea, and it shows children that the first thing might not always work. And if you try something else, you're gonna solve your problem. I think that's a really nice sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, with having a daughter myself, that positive mental attitude, because children do say, I can't do it, or it didn't work, but it's important to encourage them to keep trying, and obviously try different ways, and they'll get there in the end.
I think Sophie's, your illustrators, drawings really complement that storyline and the narrative. How did you collaborate with her to bring the world to life? How did the visuals come along? Did you have them planned, or were they sort of something that you developed on with her?
Yeah, so obviously I want to start by saying Sophie Nicole's illustrations are absolutely beautiful, and they do really complement the book. The characters originated from my niece, actually, who is a artist, and she was basically drawing them as I was writing the story and sending them over to me. Obviously we were in lockdown, so we couldn't see each other. I arranged to meet with Sophie once obviously lockdown had ended. She was recommended by a family member, and this is where it began, currently in uni still. And before we know it, we were having lots of late night calls, discussing ideas, scenes, and piecing it together. And it just became a lovely friendship of building up the story and the ideas, and changing things as well along the way. So we had quite a few different versions of each character, and settled on the ones that obviously were from the originals that my niece had drew.
I bet it was such a surreal experience, kind of having the originals, then going through and changing the designs and like really bringing them to life how you'd imagined, especially with your daughter as well. Because if this was a book that you wrote in lockdown, I'm sure that you read it to her over and over again. So you both would have had a image of what the characters look like in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, the characters are like the originals, and they are how we imagined them. So that's lovely to see that they haven't deferred from what they originally were, but they've just become sharper, crisper, and obviously more characteristics of them. They're quite cute, if you like you were saying about they can be quite scary insects, whereas these guys are lovely and cute and welcoming.
Yeah, they are so adorable. I also love how fluid the book feels. There's a lot of movement and it's very like it feels like it flows really well. With
Yeah.
all the water and them swimming through the honey, and it's kind of like big waves of things. It's not like a very rigid illustration style, which I think really is lovely with the storyline.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so Sophie was a very strong influence on that side of things, because obviously we knew we wanted the honey and the water, and it was just piecing it together. And she made that pretty fluid, to be honest. Like you said, it flows really lovely through the book.
Yeah, it literally just feels like each page goes into the other really seamlessly, which is a really good value to have in your book. So you mentioned that your passion for writing stems from being from a family of avid readers. How did they influence the creation of your book? Is it something that you always wanted to do, or was it a kind of a spur of the moment idea?
So I've always been a keen writer, and I am in university studying creative writing. We've all in my family have read from a very young age, and obviously after piecing together parts of this little story with my daughter and my mum, I had a little bit of a, do I carry on with this, or is this just for fun? But to be fair, my parents and my daughter, who was excited to hear the end, that they encouraged me to build up on the ideas and basically create the story I've always wanted to publish.
That's so lovely. It's always nice to have a sentimental background behind stuff like this, something that you can speak to your daughter about and say, "Oh, you influenced how I wrote my book." That's so special.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she's so excited, and she tells everybody about it, and she's so overwhelmed with with the book that it's actually there in her hand, printed, published, and we read it every night. It's become the
Oh.
favorite in the household now, which is absolutely lovely.
How did her interests and her personality influence the characters or the storyline in the book?
So my daughter's kindness and generosity to everyone she meets is beautiful, which spurred me on to kind of do something for her. She's writing stories herself, and always shows me these. And obviously, she's got a massive love for animals and insects. So, of course, with the love of reading and insects and her kindness, it empowered me really to begin the journey of Bertie. Basically, to see where the road led me, really, and obviously visualize that smile on my daughter's face to have that bedtime story, mummy's bedtime story.
That's so sweet. I love that. What was the biggest challenge that you faced while you were writing the book, and how did you overcome it?
To dedicate myself to such a challenge was quite frightening at first, not knowing where it could take me or if my efforts would be worth it. Obviously, it is for for my daughter and my family, but I just didn't know where it was going to lead. So a fair few moments of panic and obviously writer's block, not knowing how to continue the story. However, determination and the level of support I've got from all of my family members, that helped me overcome these challenges and just spurred me on. And I'm so glad I did overcome those, because I'm here today with my published children's book.
Yeah, I can imagine being doing social work and having a daughter and your own family must be hard to do something like writing a book in the background, but it's so worth it because you got such a lovely result out of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, with being a uni student with creative writing, you are always writing. So shutting down that laptop or that paperwork from you know, working in social care or writing for my creative writing course to then go on to continue writing, you do get that writer's block, and you do feel like, can I carry on? I'm exhausted, but it's just having that drive and that passion to get to the end, really. It's absolutely worth it.
Did your uni degree influence the book at all? Did it have any like different like modules that gave you any motivation for the book, or is it a completely separate entity?
So the year that I was writing Bertie, I wasn't actually studying children or fantasy or anything like that. It was more poetry,
Hmm.
and that gave me an indication that unfortunately I wasn't very good at poetry. And adult novels is something that I'd like to do, but at this moment in time, with having a daughter and working in the social care sector for children's emotional well-being, mental well-being, things like that, it gave me that inspiration to carry on.
Touching on that poetry aspect, I do really like how the book isn't consistently rhyming, but it does kind of have a nice rhythm to it because some of the words do rhyme. So I do think that's
Yeah.
really good for a book for the age range of the children this one is directed at, because it kind of isn't too complex in a way that they're going to get bored of reading it because it's got quite a lot of words in it. But I do think the rhyming really helps the rhythm of the
Yeah,
story.
yeah, absolutely. So when I take my daughter to the library, we, have a flick through of the books. And during the time of writing it, the books that my daughter was drawn towards was the kind of lots of words in it, but lots of colourful pictures. And obviously the rhyming element of it, she really enjoyed that, rhyming element with the adventure and all the fun. So I think the rhyming complements the book really nicely.
I completely agree. Like I said, it doesn't, you don't get lost in the rhyming as well. The story definitely still shines through, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very pleased with it, how it turned out. Obviously, it was a challenge to rhyme some of the words. So some of the words aren't exactly rhyming, but as you said, they marry up really well with the sentences and the story.
Yeah, I think it's not always about the whole book rhyming. I think having the occasional bit to, like I said, keep the rhythm going definitely complements the book really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that as well. Yeah.
As a newcomer into being a published author, what advice would you give to any aspiring children's authors that were just starting their journey?
So I've actually spoken to quite a few writers who are, ready to basically try and get their books published and get them out there in the world. And the advice I've given to the newcomers there is, I would say not to give up hope and believe in your work really. And the phrase that I like to share with people was, Rome wasn't built in a day. You've got to put that effort in and that hard work in. And of course, just to keep writing, even when you don't feel like it could be the beginning or the ending of your next published story.
hmm I feel like, especially when you can get inspiration from anything in your day-to-day life, or you just get a thought come into your head and you think, oh my God, I could write a book about that. It's such a,
Yeah.
I personally haven't written a book, but I do see how you do just have to keep going. Like you said, but Rome's not built in a day. If you've got writer's block one day, come back to it and you'll figure something out. You can take inspiration from anything.
Yeah, you really can. I mean, the inspiration for Bertie was literally a fly
Yeah.
flying through the back door into the kitchen, and just obviously having that time where, as I said, the world stood still. Everybody was it was the entertainment element, and then it just grew from there into a story, and that's the wonderful thing about everything. Anything can be a story as long as you creatively put your mind to it.
Especially with something such as a fly flying in, so many people would be so like annoyed by it and so dismissive. But ta like really taking the moment to appreciate what it is, sort of thing. You can like you've written a book about it. It's just you need to take creative liberties sometimes, don't you? And just think, do you know what? Let's just do it.
Yeah, it's always a gamble with anything really, and that's the important thing. You've got nothing to lose really. You've just got to give it your best shot, and luckily it's worked for me. It really has, and I'm so pleased with the results of it.
What do you hope that children and parents would take away from Bertie and the Breakfast Tree after reading it together?
So the hope really is that through fun and adventurous stories, that the parents and the children pick up on the subtle skills of the friendship and the courage, and the creative problem solving, and just begin to think of what Bertie, Boris, and Harry would do to help children in their own lives, really, and obviously for them to enjoy the story and pick up on those little subtle hints.
hmm Like we touched on earlier, I do think the like trying again, if something's not working, you can always find a solution. I think that is a thing that a lot of parents and children will come back to.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think stories with that, that emotional well-being or that skill building development is important for children. That's, they sit down of an evening or for bedtime and they're focused on that story. So what you're reading them or what they're reading themselves, it goes in, and I think it stays in, it stays in their mind, and they can relate back to it, or their parents can help them relate back to it. Like you said, about not being able to do something or trying again, what would Bertie do? Or remember what Boris and Harry did with Bertie.
Definitely. And I also think there's so many different little illustrations on each page. There's always something to talk about. You could read the book 100 times and still notice a new little detail.
Yeah, yeah, that's I'm so pleased with Sophie's work, because obviously I'm not an illustrator. I have lots of ideas in my head, but everything I was relaying to her, she had it there. It was like she was in my mind, and we studied lots of children's books in the library and children's books that I had here, and what she's produced, it's just, while the parents are reading the story, like you said, they can focus on so much that's going on the page, but it's kind of a flow. It's not overwhelming, so they're listening to the story, but they're also looking at where Bertie, Boris, and Harry are, and what they're up to on that page.
Hmm. And especially, I feel like with it being themed around breakfast and stuff, it's very relatable for a child because obviously their day kind of revolves around having their meals, playing, going to school. So I feel like every child is going to be able to relate to the story. So they could sit down and imagine Bertie and the crew coming in and landed in their pancakes. It's something that any child could kind of imagine. It's not too far-fetched.
No, no, it's not. And obviously nobody wants a blue bottle
No.
fly to land in their child's breakfast, but if that so happens, some children might be emotional about that, and but parents now have got this book where they can relate and be like, oh, it's Bertie, he's come to visit you, or oh, there's a spider in the house, and the children are like, get the spider out. And now it can be like, oh, it's Harry.
Hmm.
That's every spider, bee and fly that turns up around where we live, my daughter's just straight away, oh, there's Boris.
Bless her. That's so sweet. Moving on from that, what has the most rewarding feedback you've received from readers so far, or friends or family? What's that been?
Okay, so as well as some delightful reviews online, which have been lovely to read, receiving feedback from the events that I've attended, directly from the parents who've attended. We've had childminders wanting to buy the book to basically discuss that with their group. But the most humbling of all is seeing the children's faces, and after I've read them the story at these events, they are excited to tell me who their favorite character was and why. And you can see how much they're willing to engage because they've really focused on the story. So it's ultimately it's how the children have read the story, took it in, and felt really connected. That's so lovely, and it's the most rewarding, really is. And obviously having to read the story every single night at bedtime to my daughter, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like especially getting feedback from children is so rewarding because they don't necessarily understand how much work's gone into it and how you're having to balance everything. They just see the story for what it is.
They
Yeah.
are who the book is for. So hearing that they really enjoyed it, and the characters really related to them. Obviously they wouldn't say that to me in those words as little children, but they say, oh, Harry's my favorite, and oh, he's scary and he's got loads of legs, but he's really kind in this. And it's just the excitement in their faces is just, yeah, it's really humbling.
Is there any future plans with Bertie or perhaps other stories that you're working on? I know we touched on it earlier about you writing some different books, but is there anything that you've got that you're particularly excited about?
Of course, yeah. So I don't think we've seen the last of Bertie and his friends. I have a further 3 children's book on which I'm working on at the moment, and I hope to publish these in the near future. Really, just working with Sophie the illustrator now on book 2. So yeah, definitely watch this space for Bertie and his friends, and we've introduced some new characters as well. So there's different personalities and different characters for the children to meet along the way. So fingers crossed we can get that to the finish line and get that published as well, so the children can read book 2 and book 3.
I will be waiting for the day that that comes back through to marketing.
Thank you.
No worries. So that is all the questions that I had for today. Is there anything that you might want to say to anyone that might be watching or listening?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so obviously no pressure, we're in cost of living crisis and all these things, so I'm not here to push. Obviously I'm here to sell my book and get the message far and wide, but I'm not here to do hard sells or anything. So yeah, if you want to take a look at Bertie and the Breakfast Tree, I don't think you'll be disappointed. And thank you very much to all the people that have listened and bought it and reviewed it so far. I really appreciate your support in it.
And I second that. It is a lovely book. I've got it in front of me, and it is such a gorgeous illustrated and written book.
Oh, thank you so much.
No worries. So thank you for joining me today, Tony. It's been lovely to speak with you,
Yeah, it's been lovely
and
to speak with you too.
we look forward to seeing the next couple of books.
Yeah, absolutely. Watch this space. Hopefully they'll be out soon.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Untold Chapters. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, please follow and give this episode a 5-star review. There'll be a link in the description to purchase this title.